I'm back, and it's the 13th. I did not finish my book yesterday, but I did finish it today at work. My second break, I finished it, and I loved it. I did. Um,
Family don't end with blood, boy.
I still say first one is my favorite, but now because of how it ended, I'd say not by that much. Second one's still my least favorite, but I don't hate it. I know with the way I speak about the second one, it might sound like I don't like it, and that's not the case. I mean, I rated 3 out of 5 stars, which isn't bad. Um, I rated this 5, same with the first book. But, with the second one, it was just really slow to get into it. It's hard to read it from the point of view of a character you do not like. I mean, I don't hate Rexy, not anymore, at least I did. I hated her at the beginning. But she grew on me just a little bit, not enough to actually like her, but to dislike her instead of hate her, if that makes any sense at all. Um, but it was just hard to get into the second book, and the Camelot storyline started out was really slow, but it got better, and it really got better when Kato showed up, and especially when Dorothea showed up. Then it got a lot better. Um, so towards the end, pretty much, but because of that ending, it was a 3 stars, and yeah, so. But anyways, about this book, Banished, third book in the Storymakers trilogy. Um, Banished, such an amazing book. It's not a favorite. I won't go that far. I do love it enough to reread it, but it's not one of my, I mean, I have a few series that I consider my favorites, and that probably will expand once I read some of the books that's on my TBR, which I posted a video um, at the sometime in December. I think it was towards later December about my what I plan on reading in 2021. Hopefully, I can read it all because there's a lot of warrior books, which is one of the first books I want to finally finish that I haven't read. Well, I've started it but never finished it. But also, the first couple months, I am still doing rereads like I was at the end of last year, catching because since I'm doing tabs for the first time, and I thought I can't speak. I thought this was the perfect time to do my rereads. I mean, there is one series I own that I have to reread at least once a year. I have to. I don't care if that puts me behind on a Goodreads goal, or if that means I can't get as many books done. I have to reread it at least once a year. I just have to, if not more. If I like don't have money to buy a new book and I just need something to read, then I read it twice a year. I don't care, but I have to read it at least once a year because I will die without that in my life. And you guys should not be surprised at this point what that book is, and that's Seekers. I'm a little bit obsessed, and I have no regrets. So yeah, since I'm tabbing now, I'm gonna be rereading that soon. You know what they say, save the best for last. So that'll be the last of my rereads, and I'm so excited to tab it. Oh my gosh, that series. There's 12 books, and there's gonna be so many tabs. There's gonna be tabs on like every page. Just wait for it. Wait for it. I might be exaggerating a little bit, but I'm not exaggerating when I say that series will have more tabs than any other book I own, because that is the best book I've ever read. Ironically enough, even though it's not fantasy, because fantasy is like the only genre I care about. Really, it's the only genre I care about to write at all, and it's really the only genre I care about reading, except for Aaron Hunter's books. I love Seekers more than anything, and Warriors is my second favorite as of right now. You know, from what I've read so far. I'm hoping it doesn't go downhill since there are so many books. Um, and I love it. What I have read of it, and I also want to read Aaron Hunter's 2 other series, Survivors and Bravelands, and I hope I love them as much. I think I will, and if I don't, I'm gonna be really sad. So let's hope it goes well, because I will be like, seriously, if I don't love them as much as I think I'm going to love them, they will be my top disappointed books of 2021, even though I'm going to read them pretty early on, because right after I finish Warriors, Survivors, and Bravelands are next, because I want to read all of Aaron Hunter's books finally. I want to finally read them all, finish them all, and I want to love them all. I'm already pretty sure I'm going to love the rest of Warriors, because I love what I've read so far. It's going to be a little sad without the characters that I love, because I know, because it's like each arc goes to a different generation So eventually, all of the cats that I love are gonna die. So that's gonna be a little sad. But hopefully, there'll be new cats I love. And if there's not, then I'm gonna die a little bit inside. How did I turn this into another conversation about Seekers? I swear I could turn any conversation into Seekers. Seriously, it's a gift. It's like it's my talent in life. Apparently that's my talent. I could turn any conversation into Seekers. You say, I don't know, say just one comment that has nothing to do with Seekers, and I'll be like, yeah, that reminds me of Seekers because of this thing that happened in there, or because of this character, or because of this, and I think I have a problem. Moving on, because this is about this book. This is about this book, right? Let's move on. so, so it starts out with Dorothea in this other realm because at the end of the last book, Rexy thought she killed her because she had no choice. Dorothea even asked her to kill her because the curse was finally taken over. Like several generations ago, someone really pissed off a they say picks. That I like their cuss words. I don't like to cuss, but maybe I'll start using their cuss words. No one will even know unless you read this book. But I don't want to cuss, so no, I'm not gonna do that, even if it is in code. Anyways, moving on. I need to stop doing that. Okay, moving on. Several generations ago, one of her ancestors, royally upset this like magical person and powerful person, and they cursed them, but um, but it didn't work on that person. Instead, it like went to their like bloodline or something. So they had this thing where the women in the family couldn't even leave the palace walls because um, they couldn't let because they didn't know which person the curse would come true for, and because of everything that Dorothea ended up going through, it ended up coming true for her, and the curse had finally taken over. She was hurting people, killing people. She even killed Berta, who was her best friend, and well, one of her best friends, because Rexy's also her best friend. But Berta was like the only person in her entire life she could really talk to. She really looked up to. She really was close to most of her life. She had issues with her parents, especially with her mom. But yeah, so Rexy ended up stabbing her with Excalibur without meaning to. She just wanted it to end, but then she kind of just disappeared, and Rexy just assumed she was dead. Obviously, she did die. She did get stabbed by Excalibur, and so. But then at the end of the book, it showed Dorothea, who's being called Dorothy in this realm, be she was in this other realm. She was in this. It turns out she was supposedly in a coma after she had like this surgery done for cancer. I want to say, because I'm pretty sure they mentioned that a couple times. Cancer. She had surgery to like take it out or something, and then she was put into a coma afterwards. And then after she woke up and was freaking out, I was talking about all this crazy stuff. They put her in the psych ward of the hospital. And yeah, so she had to see this therapist and talk about these dreams she was having. Cause she could even after at the end of the second book, which I mentioned in that book review. I was trying. Ow! I just hit myself with my block. I'm not that smart, am I? Okay, moving on. Anyways, so I lost what I was saying. Okay, yeah. At the end of the second book, Rexy, that's what I was saying. I seriously cannot remember. I know I mentioned the end of the second book. What was I saying? I don't remember now. But anyways, I'm just gonna move on and continue, and if I remember, I remember. Oh yeah, okay. So at the end of the second book, after everything that went down, Rexy's and Dorothea's bond that was formed at the end of the first book when Dorothea used life magic to save Rexy's life after Rexy ran in front of lightning bolt, storm bolt, something like that, to save Dorothea. They end up having this bond where they could basically feel each other's presence, sense each other, see each other's memories and stuff. but Rexy couldn't see or sense Dorothea anymore. But Dorothea, for some reason, could still not really feel Rexy's feelings or sense her or anything like that, or but she can see, and it's not even seeing her memories like what Rexy was going through in the second book. It's just in her dreams she could see what Rexy was doing at that moment and what was going on, and that's not because of Dorothea's magic. It's because of her Storymaker magic, which is a different form of magic that she ended up being trained for in the second book. Um, she's been trained to be a Storymaker. So Rexy ends up at the very beginning. Rexy tries to execute Guinevere, and then she gets in prison. While Mick ends up, he can kind of change into anyone he wants, any appearance he wants. So he changes to Rexy so that everyone thinks that they still have the king of Camelot. And but then Mick ended up realizing that Dorothea was alive, telling Rexy, and then I don't remember how they found out, but they did. And then
Family don't end with blood.
so he ended up taking Rexy's place in the prison, and Rexy took his place back in her original place. Yeah, that sounds complicated when I explain it like that. But eventually, they got rid of Gwen and got Hydra back, and Mordred, Hydra, and Rexy ended up leaving Camelot, with Mick pretending to be Rexy, so that the kingdom can still have a king. And they went on a journey because they needed to go to the well. This magical well, that's because they needed to. I think they needed to like make a wish, because that's what ended up happening. But I don't remember if they mentioned it at the beginning, because I know Rexy ends up having to make a wish, which she hated, because ever since the whole wish that happened with Dorothea that started all of this, she hates wishes. They all do. They because an ill-said wish can be worse than a curse, which Rexy actually states. But they go on that journey anyways, and Dorothea's locked in the side floor when she meets this guy John, and she has all these pictures of her memories and people she cares about from the other realm. And this guy John ends up seeing a picture of him, who is actually supposed to be Kato. And then John has the same kind of eyes as Kato, and but she doesn't have any. But he's like, no, I don't know who you are. I don't know who this guy is, but you must have me mistaken with someone else, and you're crazy. But John ends up coming back and saving her life again and again. Like one time she was being chased through the hospital by Grizz, and then but it wasn't. That isn't what really was happening. Well, it was, but only she could see it. Like most of what happens in that realm, only she could see, because she's not actually from that realm. But Rexy, not Rexy. Why did I say Rexy? What the heck? My mind's just not here tonight. I wasn't even gonna make this video today, but I wanted to get it over with. Okay, so anyways, what was I saying? But she ended up being like in a daze. That's how it looked to everyone else, at least. And she ended up kind of like she was sleepwalking. She ended up at like the edge of the roof, I think, or something like that. It looked like she was ready to jump, and John saved her life. And he just kept showing up, and then she ends up being taken, and for her new set of treatments, where basically, which is basically shock therapy. And but her doctor was a new doctor, and it turned out to be Grizz. And she wasn't using those, contraptions. She was using her lightning, because that's her power. And she was wanted to torture, and she wanted to make it so, basically she wanted to paralyze her throughout her entire body, but keep her mind intact, so that she would suffer, knowing that she lost everything, that she can't save anyone, that she's all alone forever. But John finds out what the heck is going on, and because of that, he ends up breaking her out, and they leave the psych ward. And yeah, so they're on the run. She has no idea how this place goes, and she ends up explaining her entire story to him after she felt better and they were far enough away from the hospital. And so fun. I had mixed feelings about John at first. I was like, I wasn't sure what his intentions were, but he kept popping up, so, and it made you wonder, like, what the heck. But anyways, so, Rexy and, what's his name? John didn't know if he didn't believe her, but he's still willing to help her through whatever the heck she was talking about. And then Rexy, Mordred, and Hydra were going on this journey, and Hydra ended up having to swap heads with again, and she ended up having to put on Morgana's head, who turned out to be Mordred's mother, because they needed her help or something. And Morgana's a horrible person, horrible mother, and yeah, so that didn't end well. There's even one scene when she wouldn't save her own son unless Rexy promised to give the Grail to him once they reached the well. So yeah, but the three of them, well, Morgana, Hydra, they end up having to swap heads again to Hydra, but three of them ended up going to on their journey. They ended up having to go through 3 tests. One was courage, and the last one was heart. What was the first one? Or it might have been the second one. Was it the fear, or was that the courage? Was the fear and courage like the same one? What was the other test? I know there was 3. I don't remember what, and I don't think I tabbed that test, or I might have. I just don't remember. And if I did tab it, it would have been one of the yellow tabs. I know that much. You know that's the theater point, so it can't be that one. Okay, I remember that scene. That scene was sad, or it was sad, not at the same time. Okay, I guess maybe did I tab it? I might not tab it. I don't know if I tabbed it or not. I might not have cared to tab it that scene. Okay, that was when John rescued Sophia from Grace. Just when. Okay, so I'm just gonna, since I don't remember one of the trials, I'm not gonna talk about it apparently. So one trial was like trial of courage or fear, or I think it's the same thing. But basically, they all had face divorce fears, since it only goes back and forth between Rexy and Dorothea's point of view. You didn't get to see Mordred's or Hydra's point of view, or their fears. And Rexy didn't even think that Hydra had any fears, and I wouldn't be surprised. But seeing Rexy in the first book, you wouldn't think she had any fears too, until you see her point of view in the second book. Then you get to see that maybe that's not as tough as she pretends sometimes. But anyways, that fear, she ended up having, I don't remember what the first part of it was, her first fear, because it like showed 2 things. But then second one was her in a bunch of mirrors, and each mirror had a different reflection, and they all moved and talked on their own, even left the mirrors. And they're all different versions of Rexy. There's like the King of Camelot version, the version that was becoming Dorothea. There was the traitor who worked with Grizz and betrayed her friends. There was, okay, those are the only ones I can think. Oh, there was the one where that grew up in the Sherwood Forest, and there was the kitchen maid that worked for Verda in the palace. Those are the only ones I can think of, and those might have been the only ones there even were. I don't remember. But she ended up having to fight them all, and after that finished, she ended up coming face to face with Robin Hood, her father, or at least who she thought was her father her entire life, until the endish of the second book, when she found out that he actually found her as a baby and only kept her because he thought that she was like a gift from the gods, or and she would be special and help and give him something in return for taking care of her all those years. And she was disappointed when she found out he was not. But when she found out about all that in the second book, which I think I mentioned in my I did mention in my review for Wanted, she gave him Excalibur. Well, he took Excalibur actually, technically, because I think he forced it from her. I don't remember, but basically. But then she actually thought it was the real Excalibur at the time, until Mordred saved her and told her that it was actually a fake, and because the Excalibur never actually showed itself to him, because he's technically not worthy At least at that point, I had mixed feelings for Mordred in the second book, seriously, but in this book, I actually came to love him. Um, anyways, uh, one thing I have to say that I did not like about this book was we got very minimal Kato. He is my favorite character and is very I understand why we got like one scene in the middle-ish of the book and it only lasted like 1 second, and then at the very end there was like a minute of Kato. Like seriously, that is all. But I mean, technically, if you think okay, if you think about it, he was kind of in the book a lot. I'll explain that when I get to that because spoilers. Um, uh, anyways, moving on. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, the she ended up having to fight Robin Hood, and she was losing. She was already being up from having to fight all those versions of herself, and she couldn't fight Robin Hood too. He turns out because he gave I don't want to say Mordred, no, Morty, that the guy who ruled the underworld, or the Forgotten at least. He ruled the forgotten part of the underworld. I don't think he ruled the entire underworld. I might be mistaken, but I don't know. Um, he was tortured and stuff for giving him the wrong Excalibur because they had a deal, but he didn't know. Neither did Rexy at the time know that that was the wrong Excalibur. Technically, it wasn't Rexy's fault, but Robin blamed her and wanted her to suffer the way he suffered all those years. But Morty would let him go if he killed Rexy, so Rexy would be out of Morty's way. But Mordred came in at the last second, and it's like, close your eyes, and she did, and then she could like hear his last breath and stuff, and he's like, no one should have to kill thine own kin. He talks weird. Well, he was dead for a very long time before he showed up, before he was introduced in the second book. So when he was alive, that's probably how they talked back then. That would have been how they talked back then. But yeah. Anyways, um, so he saves her again, and Dorothea has her own test too. She ends up having to do because okay, actually no, I'm wrong. There was another scene with Kato, but it was and wasn't Kato. I mean, technically it was Kato, but it was Dorothea's dream or illusion, more like. She ended up having this like illusion because this was after her and John got into a big fight, and then there was like all these things going around in town. The library burned down and these bugs everywhere, and everything was blackening, and only Dorothea could see a lot of it. And but there were these people in town that looked all weird as they looked around because they could see it too. They called them the Forsaken. They were part of this battle or something that Grizz and Blanc was doing. But yeah, so and then John got into this big fight because he was like, "Why don't you just stay and forget about all those people?" And Dorothy's like, "No, never, I can't." And then they got into this big fight. He leaves, and then she ends up having this illusion where she's with Kato, and they're together, and they're getting married, and she has her parents, and it's not like none of that happened because it still happened. Some of it happened though, except for the other realm part. In this illusion, the wish happened and stuff, but Dorothea was able to stop it when she killed Grizz. Blanca never got freed, and was never freed, and she was able to bring her parents back to that realm, and she was now marrying Kato, and Berta was alive because the curse never consumed her. Okay, so yeah, and she had to have this test. It was like a test of letting go or something. Is that how Berta explained it? I think I tabbed that chapter red because of the Kato and Dorothea scene. Yeah, so, oh, I found it too. It was my first try. I found it. Because I know she explains what it's called. Okay.
Family don't end with blood, boy.
Uh, oh yeah, Mick came off too, so it's like all in disarray now. A kingdom without a king or queen, since Gwen's dead. Oh yeah, so before the whole Robin Hood thing went down, um, Dorothea or Rexy end up seeing Dorothea through one of the mirrors, and she's like, okay, let me find it. I just saw it too. Okay. This is technically not the chapter, but it ends up repeating what she said, and I'll explain that in a minute. Okay, here. I'm sorry I killed you. I'm sorry I failed and let you down. I'm sorry Kato died for nothing. I tried so hard, but this is who I am, all I can be. And then that's when she's like, you didn't kill me. You saved me from becoming something else. Saved both of us. It's enough. You've always been enough. Which is really sweet. It's a nice friendship moment between them. I wish we had more moments like that between the two of them. Sometimes I feel like we get more of the bickering part of the relationship than the sweet parts, because they really are like bickering siblings who get on each other's nerves, who sometimes can't even stand to be around each other, but in the end would die for one another, literally, since they both actually die for each other. Okay, but that's another story. Moving on. What was I talking about? I don't remember. Of course I don't. Okay. Oh yeah. But then during her test, she ends up seeing Rexy through the mirror she was looking at, and that whole scene replayed. So when you first see the scene with Rexy, and you think that it's just like not actually happening, turns out they can actually see each other. This whole thing, when the same time it happened to Rexy, it was happening to Dorothea, because it was actually the two of them and not just images of them. So yeah. But what was that test called? Because Berta said what it was called. She was like, "You have your own test." Blah blah blah. I know she says what the test is called, but she didn't show me. I wanna know. Okay. Well, anyways, she ends up being able to spy on Morty through the mirror, and she ends up basically the test of letting go. She has to let go of this reality of Kato, because Morty is using Kato's body, but a part of Kato is still alive, which none of them knew until now, and Rexy still doesn't know, not until later on. But so because he's still there's still a part of him, he uh Dorothy wants to save him, but she can't. It's either let Morty live along with Kato and destroy all the realms, or stop Morty saving all the realms and also losing Kato. So she ends up having to walk out of her illusion and let it all just crumble and disappear, because that's all it was. She could have stayed there if she wanted to. She could have stayed there and pretend it was all perfect, pretend she was happy with this illusion, but in the end she could never stop thinking about the real world, about what was going on, about how she could stop it if she tried. But yeah. But eventually Rexy, Mordred, and Hydra ended up at the well, which is where the trial of Heart, and they went back to Morgana's head, and Morgana reminded her of the there was a little squabble between the three of them. I won't go into details. I go into a lot of these details during my reviews, but uh but uh Rexy didn't want to give him the grail, not because she didn't trust him. She didn't trust Morgana, but she trusted Mordred. But it's because this is their only chance to contact Dorothea and find a way to stop Morty and Grizz and Blanc. And so Dorothea, not Dorothea, what's it? I don't know what I'm talking about. Okay, um, and then Mordred's like, I can use the Grail to make a wish, and because there's only like one drop left, and she's like, I could use the Grail to make a wish, and I could go back in time and stop all this from happening. And she's like, and he was explaining about what he could do to make that happen. And she was like, and this is when she finally came to terms with her feelings for Mordred, and she's like, uh, and then she realizes that this is the only chance to find out if he has feelings for her. Because if he has even a fraction of feelings for her, then she knew she could stop him from what he was gonna do. She was like, if you do what you're saying, then none of this would have happened. Kato probably would never been born, because uh, the original Beast King would still be king, and Grizz and Blanc wouldn't be evil, Morty wouldn't be out of the underworld, Dorothea probably wouldn't be born, and I probably wouldn't have been born. And then he stopped, and he was like, and then he ends up being like, I think that's when they kissed. That's when they had their first kiss. But then he's like, no world is worth saving without Rexy in it, and I thought that was really sweet. And then Morgana got all yuck, but yeah, but she ends up sending the Jabberwocky after them, and they end up having to fight that fun. Um, and then
It's a text message.
Dorothea ends up finding Mick in her realm. That's where he vanished, and John ended up coming back, and then Grizz ends up capturing them. Fun again. Um, but Rexy and Dorothy is able to contact each other through the well, and Rexy ends up having to change Excalibur into a pair of shoes and give them to Rexy because or to give them to Dorothy because she needed another pair of magical shoes. She just didn't know how they worked this time. And Dorothea told her that she had to stop Morty and save Kato because Kato was still alive. So now Rexy had to find a way to save Kato and defeat Morty. And then Bob shows up. Bob, he wasn't in the second book. He was in the first book, but I like Bob. He ends up, and of course Griff, that awful chimera that ended up betraying them in the first book, was working with Morty. So Bob and Rexy end up fighting Morty together and all of his shadow chimeras, and I got really sad. I was at work and trying not to cry at my break, reading about Bob's death. That upset me. Not as much as when Kato or Dorothea died. Or even when Rexy died. Actually, no, it might have upset me more than Rexy because I liked him more than Rexy. But it upset me. I was like, why did you kill Bob? He was one of the most decent people in this story. And he was so sweet and he was always loyal. He was like the most loyal of the loyal. He was always there for them. And he helped them on numerous occasions in first. Am I hearing things or did someone knock? I think I'm hearing. He was like so loyal to them, especially Kato. I don't know why do I keep doing that? And Dorothea, and even Rexy, and then he died because he wanted to do one last thing in service of his king. Talking about Kato, he wanted to be able to free him from this misery, from being trapped, and oh my god, killing off Bob was. I thought I was gonna cry. But it was just so sad because he's such a good person and he was always there and I'm sorry, I liked Bob a lot and I wish he was on more. But oh my gosh, he always said things how they were and he was just, but he was always nice about it, unlike some people who just say what they are so bluntly that it sounds mean, even if that's not the intention. But not Bob, he's different, he's amazing. I love Bob, actually. Bob needs more appreciation after everything he sacrificed for them. But his death was just so upsetting to read about. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't cry at work. But this never stopped me before. Okay, that made me sound like I cried at work before, because I have not. But, yeah, if I read in public and a sad scene comes on, I will cry in public. I really don't care. But still, I was like, no, not Bob. Anyone but Bob. Kill off. I don't want any of them to die either. Kill off Griff. Yeah, kill off Griff. Griff is awful. I never liked Griff from the start. Okay. Anyways, moving on. But yeah, and then they were able to stop Morty, and he was like dying. So, but Kato was able to squeeze past to be able to talk to them, and he and Rexy ended up having to finish the job, killing both Kato and Morty, and all the shadow creatures along with it. And then back in the other realm, Dorothea ended up having John stay in the control rooms because she had this idea to stop Grizz and Blanc. She got everyone together and was able to save her parents, and then they saw the shoes and knew that she was up to something, so they told her to give her the shoes, so she threw one at Blanc and one at Grizz. And then I love how she outsmarted them. She got them to destroy each other. Best hero move ever. Okay, Dorothea she was amazing with this one. She was like, Dorothy was like, both picked up a heel, and then Dorothy was like, now you just have to decide which one wears them. And then Blanc like, me, obviously, I am more powerful and the eldest. And then Gris and Blanc start doing sibling, you know, arguing. And then Dorothea chimes in. She's like, um, Blanc's right. She should totally wear them. She is more powerful and all that. And then Gris got angry. So, because they're like complete opposites. So they were each other's weakness. Not because in the sense that they're sisters and care about each other, but in the sense that one is made of lightning, one is made of water. You see where I'm going with this. So, there's like water around, but Gris couldn't touch water, so she was like sitting on something so she could get away from the water or something. I don't remember what she was. They said she was on, but she got Gris got mad. See, the difference between them, besides what they're made of, is that Gris is impatient. I think that was her ultimate downfall, and ended up being Blanc's downfall too, if you think about it. Blanc is really patient. She's waited centuries to do this, to finish the job. And that is why, in the end, she was the better villain than Gris. Because she was patient. She was willing to wait centuries if that's what it took. I mean, seriously, she was released at the end of the first book of her prison, and still and no one heard from her in the second book for the longest time. I mean, turns out she was the Lady Lake who was manipulating Rexy throughout a lot of the book, but no one knew that Lady Lake was Blanc. So she was very patient, getting us everyone else to do her dirty work without even realizing it. Robin Hood, Rexy, and it's just she is a smart villain. She really is. Grizz, on the other hand, she's more temperamental. She's more impatient. She wants things done yesterday. That's her problem. So yeah. So Grizz ended up throwing lightning at Dorothea, and she ducked, and they ended up bouncing around the room, electrocuting, and both the shoes were made out of metal because they were made from Excalibur, and so they were able to hit the shoes that they were both holding, and it electrocuted them both, and they both, died. So yeah, I just love how Dorothea tricked them and ended up having them destroy each other, because that was really a smart move. But then John and her parents both passed out and they were dying, and because the shadows that what was happening in the realm wasn't from the two of them, it was from Morty. So she ended up having to do her story making and get to Rexy so that Rexy can defeat Morty, and that's so actually technically she defeated Blanca Gris before Rexy defeated Morty, but I already explained all that what happened with Rexy defeating Morty. So yeah, and then John woke up, and then at first everything was fine, but then all of a sudden something happened. Something glazed over his eyes, and all of a sudden he smiles and he's like, "Hey you." I'm gonna find that scene because that's like my favorite scene. Besides, yeah, that's actually my favorite scene. And okay, let's see. Let me see if I can get to it.
It's a text message.
Because he turned out to be Kato all along, only he didn't have his memories. But since everything's back to normal and he's not a part of Morty anymore, he was able to be John. And she was like, "But you're John." And he was like, "You have a new name in this world. Why can't I?" And they just get so happy. They kiss and they're so together. And then her parents interrupt, so she ends up explaining everything to them. And then there's the epilogue, which had Oz, and he was talking about all of his stories and how. Ooh, I forgot I left my broken one here. He was talking about how he was thinking of a new story to write, or maybe a new adventure with old friends instead of like new characters and a new whole story. So that kind of left off for a possible new book, but they never made one, and I don't think they ever will, to be honest. And I'm okay if they don't. I mean, I would like at one point I would like to see a new one. The other point, I'm like, this ended so amazing. Please don't ruin it. But yeah, and it was Rexy and Mordred together. They kiss. They're happy. They're heading back to Camelot to be future kings. And then, one thing I forgot to mention is that when Gris captured Dorothea, she cut her hair so that her life magic was gone, because her life magic was in her hair. So her and Kato, both of their life magics are gone. So if they step back into the other world, they're dead for good. And then, so they both decide to stay in this world with Dorothea's parents together, happy. Yes, she can never see Rexy and Hydra again, but that's gonna have to be enough because she has Kato and she has her parents, and yeah, so that was sweet. So I loved how it ended, and I think that was a perfect ending for a great story, and it was good. I definitely do recommend it if this is your kind
Family
of cup of
don't end
tea.
with blood.
Then I definitely recommend it, and I loved it. I rated 5 out of 5 stars. So you sure guys should definitely check this out. It's definitely worth a check. Um, so yeah, this so that's all for this. Please like and subscribe and comment. If you're interested in this book, if you I don't know, want to read it, if you have read it, and your thoughts on it, and we'll chat below. And then you can follow me on Twitter, Bookstagram, and Goodreads at Secret Books. And I'll talk to you guys later.